Well, welcome aboard and welcome to another episode, another edition of Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations, where we help people explode into their lives with full impact mindfulness. There's no admission price, only the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to try. And if you, dear friends, have a few pixie dust sprinkles of each, you're well on your way. And today, as always, we're joined by our good friend, co-host, and producer of this program, Mr. Mike.
I am here. I am now. I am not thinking about the horrible things that just happened to one of my computers. I am here. I am now. I need this right now.
You have just been entertained by the philosophical musings of Brother Sorg.
Yes.
So, Mike, today there seems to be so much misinformation going on that I don't think anybody actually has a good idea of what reality is and what the truth is.
It does seem harder and harder. I mean, whether it be just watching your news or wherever you may reside on the social media space, I suppose. I know I found myself diving into some, I want to say the darker corners. It's just kind of every corner at this point. But no, absolutely. I think a lot of people are confused, conflicted, have feelings, and want to express those in some places. But it's definitely getting a little interesting here as we're, under a month from a very major election here in the States. Huh?
Yes, indeed. And that brings up a topic that has been bantied around lately. And in fact, I had never really been familiar with this term until a few years ago, and that term is gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
So to you, Mike, what does gaslighting come to your mind?
Well, to be honest, I think of an old Batman story, Gotham by Gaslight. That always pops. That's what pops in my head every time I hear it. And I know that's not the context that we have along with this.
Right. Well, it's a tactic, it's a method by which a person, in order to gain power over somebody, begins to have that person question their own reality and their own judgment and their own perceptions.
And sometimes I feel like this happens just because of my forgetfulness. But you're telling me that some people actually try to evoke this feeling in other people for like a method of control.
Mike, it's a common technique of abusers, dictators, narcissists, people who run cults. When they break people down and begin to make them think that their thought processes are so faulty that they have to listen to the leader. That they have to. So usually how's that done? It's by, first of all, telling just outright, possibly outrageous lies. So there's a saying that in a thought, just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. And I often tell people that their thoughts are like politicians. If they tell a lie loud enough and long enough, soon you'll begin to believe it. Because if that's the only thing that they hear. And then denial that they did something. I know that you're doing this. No, absolutely I'm not. What makes you think that? There must be something wrong. Where do you get that ideas from? Have you ever thought about that? So when you're having somebody question their own sanity, okay? And it's a wearing down process over a period of time. This isn't like hypnosis where you go into a deep type of meditation and you listen to suggestions, okay? This is wearing somebody down over a period of time. And I think where this term comes from, Mike, in 1944, there was a film called Gaslight, where a husband slowly over a period of time through these type of methods drove his wife mad.
And this is something that happens in media. There was a series on USA that just came out that was, I think, about this process as well.
Yes. And when you begin to blur the lines between what's good and what's bad, okay? So let me give you an example. Maybe they'll say some type of a racist organization or some type of a hate group. And when the other person might say, oh my gosh, those people are awful. Well, I heard that they were organizing a food drive for homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Also, I heard that they were giving away clothing to the poor, and I heard that they were also organizing drives to clean up the side of the roads. Yes, I understand that some of the things that they do may not be acceptable by everyone. However, I think they're trying to counter that by doing some positive
So
things.
this is something that can happen. It sounds like it's something that can happen through kind of bigger means like media as well.
Yes, absolutely. So, and it's a continuous when you only show one side of a story,
Mm-hmm.
one side of a situation.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that we talked about in the past about the coin someone else's word, truthiness, and the media that we have. And I know I'm very conscious of trying to make sure I don't lean into the confirmation bias and try to stay middle in the road. Like it can happen both ways.
So perhaps we can again clear up confirmation bias, and
Mm-hmm.
that's looking for information that confirms your existing beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to use this COVID situation that the United States and the world is experiencing at the moment. So a while back, uh, there was the drug Plaquenil, which was being touted as a cure for it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people might say, well, Jim, what do you know about Plaquenil? I've been taking Plaquenil for years
Mm-hmm.
as I have lupus. It's an autoimmune disease. Okay. And however, there has never been any substantive type of research that shows that this particular type of drug has any effect on the COVID virus, either curing it or preventing it. Although I'll have to tell you, Mike, I was with somebody and they were trying to tell me that you people should take it. And I said, okay, well, convince me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, I haven't seen any studies at all. And they told me, well, there's this one doctor in some other country that it says that he has some good results from it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's confirmation bias.
Right. Right.
That,
And it's a reach, right? Like, why would you believe the one doctor versus the scores of doctors? Is that a conspiracy, or is that just science?
well, we always want to determine whether someone is letting their opinion interfere with facts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Science is not some type of magic. It's
Mm-hmm.
not magic, it's science.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in the past, in many, many, many years ago, when there was a natural disaster, when there was a famine, when there was sickness, it couldn't be explained
Mm-hmm.
because people didn't have the methods to determine the origin of these things. However, so they blamed them
On the gods
yes,
or deities or spirits or something of the like, right?
we angered the gods.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
gods must be appeased.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So gradually, people began, as scientific methods became more in the fore, and we began to examine things and determine cause and effect,
Mm-hmm.
then we found that most of these things are caused by legitimate reasons, universal laws,
Mm-hmm.
the way the universe, the way physics, the way things function.
I listen to a lot of science podcasts. Okay, I listen to one science podcast a lot, I guess, and they are often discussing things, some cosmic things like the idea of dark matter in the universe, right?
Yes.
Think not like black holes, but like something else is happening,
Yes.
and some of it's unexplainable. And
At present.
at present,
At present.
at present, but we're not like oh, that is happening. That must be some like there's a ground for that now. Say there's a reason this is happening. It's not magical. We just don't understand it yet.
People want to believe in magic. They
Mm-hmm.
want to believe in these type of things. And I'm a believer in there's a connection with all energy in the universe. And Mike, how that interconnects and how a person can interact with that. You've heard of the butterfly effect, the chaos theory.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I think we both had darker hair, we did a podcast on that, on the butterfly
Mm-hmm.
effect, chaos theory. I'm aware that I repeat this many, many times. However, remember, when I talk to people in my therapy office, when I at a 12-step meeting, when I participate in 12-step meetings, I make it clear that the recovery work doesn't take place in my therapy room. The recovery work does not take place in a 12-step meeting room. The recovery work does not take place in this studio with you and I talking. The recovery work takes place outside of that when we interact every day in everyday circumstances, Mike.
Yep.
So we want to keep repeating these processes over and over again until they become learned behavior. And one of these is developing a mind of awareness. What do I know for sure?
And that's probably more important than ever right now these days.
What do I know for sure? So one of the ways that I get around people when they say something to me that may be a bit outlandish, I'll ask them to convince me. Convince me. The moon's made of green cheese. Convince me. The COVID virus doesn't exist. Convince me. So-and-so says this. Convince me. So, and again, we've talked about this before in the 12-step book, Alcoholics Anonymous. It says that the message that can interest and hold these people must have depth and weight. That means that you have to show why it works, how it works, and give examples of it working.
Like the scientific method, perhaps?
Perhaps. Perhaps. So I'm not asking people to walk around being the eternal skeptic, okay? But I'm also asking people not to accept things at exactly face value. What do I know for sure? Let's check the facts. And you and I have talked many, many times about mindfulness. The most basic definition of it is paying attention on purpose, a mind of awareness.
Absolutely.
Being able to accurately label and describe whatever is right in front of you. So one of the other ways that people who are trying to gaslight you, they'll also recruit individuals who think the same way as they do to influence you. And then they'll start to have you question the people who you are close to, telling you that perhaps they're not telling you the truth. Are you sure? What do you really know about this person? Do they have your best interest in mind? You begin to question that. And naturally, the confirmation bias, and they'll bring up things which prove their point. There's so many conspiracy theories abounding today about mostly everything. One of the huge conspiracy theories in the past used to be about the Illuminati. Okay. The Illuminati control the world.
That's an old classic.
It is, isn't it? And that's a delicious subject to talk about.
I think they were the bad guys in one of the Tomb Raider films, actually.
Yes, they were. Yeah, actually, the Illuminati started in Bavaria, and it was a society to originally, their original purpose was to illuminate the masses about culture, art, music.
That sounds delightful.
Yes, yes. So, however, it was perverted a bit and manipulated during its growth. However, do I believe that there is a cabal of vast industrialists who control every aspect of the world? To that, I would say, convince me. Convince me. Okay. So, and Mike, I think one of the, I don't know if you want to dive into this subject or not, but I'm going to. Okay.
It's your show.
One of the biggest gaslight jobs, I believe, in the history of the universe was the castigation and the degradation of the Jewish faith and the Jewish people. So I believe that the Jewish faith got a horrible act in the Christian Bible. when sometimes Jews are originally viewed as Christ killers. Okay. So, when actuality, what happened was the Jewish authorities naturally weren't a fan of Jesus and the popularity that he had. So, their laws forbid people being put to death. So, they turned him over to the Romans. Now, keep in mind that in the Gospels, uh, Pontius Pilate was written out to be a fine man, washing his hands, saying, "This is an innocent man. The blood is on your hands," acting like it was all just this wonderful type of thing. And that one of the traditions was at Passover for the Romans to release a prisoner. And the popular story written was that it was between Jesus and this murderer and thief named Barabbas, when in actuality, the Roman government never had that type of activity during the Passover. So we want to keep in mind that the Gospels were written a number of years after the circumstances, after the events, and all of them have varying levels of congruity between them. And they were written in Rome, and they were all written in Greek. And at the time, the Christian sect in Rome was being persecuted by the Roman authorities. So the Gospels were written with the slant of Pontius Pilate being a good guy, and the Romans were faultless in this ordeal in the crucifixion of the Jesus. So, in actuality, as cruel and as barbaric as the Romans were, and they were, Pontius Pilate was recalled from Judea because of his cruelty. He was recalled. He had no problems crucifying people, keeping order, none at all, Mike. So, in my own thoughts, this possibly was one of the biggest gaslighting jobs, concerted conspiracy efforts of gaslighting that has ever existed. And my challenge out there for everyone is to look behind the facts. Our good friend and contributor to this program, and also on the Sorgatron Media, is Professor Buzzkill.
Yep.
Professor Buzzkill finds the facts behind the surface story. And someday I'd love to have the professor come in here and talk about these particular items.
Absolutely. I mean, these are things over the years. And I don't know if he's had a lot of people on from that part of history. It's usually more in the last 100 or so years.
Yes.
But still, like I'm very interested in that background. And again, convince me. I'm kind of convince me about that history.
I'd love to talk about it.
I'm very interested to see what that is.
And we want to keep in mind that Jesus was a practicing Jew. And the evening, the Last Supper, he and his disciples were celebrating the Jewish feast of Passover, which Jesus kept observance of. So before we start, I know that there seems to be so much bias and hate and discrimination against the Jewish faith today, and those of Jewish descent. And it's totally misplaced. One of the largest gaslight conspiracies ever in history. So if we've ruffled a few feathers out there and offended a few people, well, that was our intent. So, Mr. Mike, and as always, at the end of every podcast, we offer a free prescription. Fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Unplug your television, please, and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself, do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another, till all are free, none are free. Namaste.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast.
If you're interested in flying the colors of fishing without bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.